Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is this right here. So if that looks interesting to you guys, please carry on and watch the video. And also one more thing before we get into the video, if you enjoy what I do here, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. It really helps me out and lets me know you enjoy the video. But with all that out of the way, let's get into that video. Okay, so starting off with painting up Jon Snow here, and as you know, Jon Snow is a member of the Night's Watch, and they wear all black, but we want it to be a bit more interesting than being all black, so I've primed him in black, and I'm using that as the base colour for my miniature, which is an exact match for a paint I already have, which is matte black by Army Painter, so I don't have to worry about painting the armour and the cloak and everything black. I can start straight off with the primer, and then what I've done is, as you can see here, I've come in with deep blue, and I'm giving it a dry brush all over the entirety of the miniature. I'm not worried about where I'm going with this. This is our first basic step, so we can be as messy as we want here, so we can have this to build up from in our miniature itself. So just going around and picking out all of the areas, just paying close attention to our leather armor and our cloak. Then once we have that dry brushing complete, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to doing his skin tone. So he only has one place exposed to paint up for the skin, and that is the face here. So as you can see, I've come in here with a nice base flesh, which is a nice rich dark good flesh color, so I want to use that as my undertone. So giving it a good overall coat, especially since we're applying it to a black primer, we've got to make sure we want at least 2 thin coats of this, so we've got a nice smooth coverage. Then once we have that base coat down, what we're going to do is come in for some highlights. So I'm going to be using some natural flesh for this. Now, of course, you may not have the exact colors I have here, but using your flesh tone, going with a nice deeper color for the base of the flesh, and then lighter flesh color, or even just adding white to your original color, will give you some highlighting areas. And I'm paying close attention to the bridge of the nose there, the edges of the eyebrows, the tip of the chin, places where the sun would naturally hit, and give it a little bit of definition to the model itself, especially when you're standing from a distance and using the piece on the gaming table. You'll really notice the difference when you pick out those highlight spots. Okay, so now we have those highlights on our skin done, what I'm going to do is come in with a flesh wash now, and this is going to seep into the recessed areas, especially the eyes. Since I'm not worrying about painting the eyes on this model, I want that wash to really set in there and make it look like we've got some nice good shadow underneath that brow, so you can see that there's some eye definition there, as well as those areas between the nose and the cheeks and things like that. It's really going to help make this model stand out. So just giving a nice all over wash, and just being careful to watch where it dries so you don't get it pulling in any nasty areas. Then once we have that wash completely dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with my original highlight color, and I'm just going to reapply some of those highlights, so just even a smaller area for where the sun is naturally going to brighten up in those little tips. So like this is more like the tips of the nose, the very edges of the eyebrows, stuff like that, to really give it a nice extra highlighting effect, and it's really going to help set it out on the table, as you'll be able to see those transitions between all the layers we've applied there. So then once we have that done, we're going to move on to some of the other areas now of our model. So that is his face completely done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some burnt umber now, and I'm going to be doing the boots for Jon Snow. I don't want to make this model entirely black, which you totally could do, which would really probably save you a lot of time here, and really get this model really quickly out onto the table with a couple of extra maybe highlights, or just like 1 or 2 areas to pick out. But I want to give it some visual interest and detail, so I'm just going to go with some brown boots here, and we're going to dull them down later on anyway to tie them all in together so they're not so bright compared to the black colors we already have on the model. So again, I'm doing the same thing. We're trying to pick out some different colors here, but still try and make the whole overall piece look black overall, like nice dark tones. And I'm using some dark stone for this. This is a very dark brown grey color, which is sort of like an off black grey color, which really helps tie in, because this is what we want to be doing here with our Jon Snow model. He's a member of the Night's Watch. They wear all black, so we need to keep it a little bit more interesting than that, give them some little bit more personality and some visual interest on the table, especially from a distance. So using these little colors is going to help give that overall impression. Then once we have that picked out, we're going to come in now with smoke, and this here is a strange like smoky brownish wash, and this is going to be applied over the main leather armor he has over him here, which is just going to tint it just slightly. And especially since this is like basically a thickened wash like ink sort of color, we're still going to take full effect of the highlighting we did underneath with our dry brushing. So just going around and making sure that we pick out all of the armored areas. So now we have that area dried, we can move on to our next step, and this is going to be for Jon Snow's hair, and I'm going to be using a black grey for this. Now, I did go back over Jon Snow's hair with our matte black to completely get that black, and what we're doing now is essentially adding the highlights here, because I did get a little bit over in our original step when we were doing our dry brushing, giving it an all over dry brush. I did manage to catch the hair as you naturally would, so I just replaced a black over that, and then I'm just coming in with this black grey now and picking out the highlighted points of the hair. That's just adding for the nice tips and all the waves in his hair, just picking those little bits out. Okay, so now that we have that complete, what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with another brown. This here is a Nato brown by Tamiya, and I'm going to be using this to be painting up his sword scabbard, and as well as that he also has a leather, which I'm pretty sure might actually be even holding the scabbard up, around his chest and the back of his fur cloak as well. I'm going to be picking those out with this brown. Now you can see this brown is a lot lighter than all the other brown colours that we've got here, and I wanted it for visual interest. Again, you could totally use the same brown for all the parts all over if you were going for a real quick paint job, but Jon Snow, he's he's an important character. We want to add in a little bit more variety to him and make it so he stands out on the tabletop. So just going into these areas and picking out those places. Now this is one part of the model that I can't remember that Jon Snow has, especially at this point in the game. I'm pretty sure he has a black fur cloak over him, but I'm going for more of his iconic look later on in the series, where it gets a nice white fur cloak over here, which I'm guessing is some more tie back into Ghost. So I wanted to do that here because it's also going to add in a lot more visual interest rather than if we had to go in black fur on top of that as well. So going with more of his, when he becomes sort of the leader of the Night's Watch, the Knight Commander sort of look with his fur cloak when he changes it up, especially in the show anyway. So I wanted to go with that to add that more visual interest to the piece so he stands out more on the table. And as you can see here, I'm going with a deck tan color here, and against all of this it doesn't look so tan, it looks very, very white. So we're cutting across the effect we want here, and we want this as our base layer of our fur. Then once we have that complete, we're going to move on to some metallics here. So I'm going to be using a gunmetal for this, a nice good neutral gunmetal here for our base color. So he doesn't actually even have a lot of metal on him. He basically has his sword here, which by the sculpt here is not actually Longclaw. It looks like it's a little bit before he becomes Longclaw. If I remember, like the starter box is like when he sort of gets to the Night's Watch in the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game set. So he doesn't quite have it yet, and I'm not worried about trying to make it look like Longclaw here, because they'll probably do a sculpt later on that I'll get that maybe has one that more looks like Longclaw. So just painting up a sort of generic sword here. As well as that too, I want to make sure that I'm also picking out some other areas. So in the end of the scabbard here, he also has a buckle that goes across his chest where he's holding up that big strap that goes along his back. So making sure to pick out little areas like that. Then once we have that complete, we are now going to be applying a wash. Now this here is going to be no oil, a black wash. I'm going to be applying this to everywhere except the face. That's the fur, the boots, the clothing, his armor, his weapons, everything. I'm giving a total overall black wash, and this is going to help tie everything together, darken everything down, and make it more look like Night's Watch clothing. So in some places too, I will be probably doing a second black wash over it, and that's more of the brown areas, so more like the boots and some of the gloves and bits like that. I'm only probably going to be doing one pass with the wash over top of his white cloak that he has on him to keep that sort of vibrant and separate. Then once we have that wash completely dried and we're happy with it, making sure that it didn't pull as it was drying up, what I'm going to do now is come back in with our original colour for our fur. This is a deck tan here, which is an off-white, sort of a warmish white colour, and I'm going to be using it to be picking out the highlights on his fur cloak here. So this is just going around picking out all the tips here. It's going to take a little while, but trust me, it's going to really stand out in the end, especially once that wash is applied. And you see it from a distance, it's going to look like nice highlighted pieces. So don't be afraid to spend a little bit of time here picking out each one of those little nicely sculpted tufts on the back of his cloak here. Then once we have that cloak painted up, I'm going to paint one little area here with some highlights, and that is going to be the scabbard here. It's got these little straps all across it, so I'm coming back with the original colour and just applying that to these nice little straps over top, and it's going to really set them out since we've darkened everything down with the black wash. But I'm not going to be highlighting up anywhere like the boots or the gloves or anything like that. I'm going to keep that in that nice dark colour and more tone it towards the black side with that wash applied over it. Okay, so now we've completed that, what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with some shining silver. And this here is a very bright, vibrant silver, and we're going to be using it to highlight our silver areas. So this is going to be like our sword, our belt buckles, things like that. So, and with, as you can see here, I'm just going to be painting it on one side of the sword here, because I want it to shine brightly, like it's in the light and it's coming at you. So when you see it from the front angle, it looks like it's catching the light and it's really bright and imposing and really give you sort of like that glare on the eyes. That's the effect I'm going to try to go for anyway. And then of course it's just picking out the other areas around that we want to have those nice little highlights on the edges and things like that. But with that, we have finally finished completing painting up Jon Snow. So let's go to those glamour shots and see how we came out. And with all that complete, we have finally finished painting up Jon Snow from the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. So I hope this video has been helpful, whether you want to follow along with what I did here in the video, or you just want to use this video as some inspiration in painting up your own miniatures. But with all that said guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.